Did you withdraw the money? You got paid, right? Why do you say it like it's so obvious? In these 5 years, even when I've given you money, you haven't said thank you once. If you're working full-time and living at home, it's only natural for you to contribute money. You should be grateful for being raised up to this point. I understand what you mean, Mom. What's wrong? You're unusually confrontational today. What's the matter? Is something wrong? She's being weird, saying there's no thank you even when she gives money. Did you really say that? You got to go to university because we raised you. Don't you think contributing money is a way to repay that? It's your duty as the eldest daughter. I understand that I need to contribute money since I live at home, but aren't I supporting all 3 of you who aren't working? That's not right. I do work, just not as a full-time employee like you. Are you saying part-time jobs don't count as working? So, you want to use all the money you earn for yourself without repaying your parents. What do you think of us? If you don't want to contribute money, you can't live here. Get out quickly. Well, it's going to be hard for someone who can only work like you to live alone, sis, haha. For the past 5 years, I have been giving money to my family every month. It seemed natural to give up my earnings to support my family. I was so pressured that I never questioned it. But now, I am different. Finally, I realized that the situation I was in was not right. Thank you. I'll leave the house. If I leave, they will lose the support they took for granted and will surely regret it. As expected, a month passed, and finally my phone rang. My name is Bridget. I am not yet married and have never left my parents' house. Even if I work, living at home often makes people think I'm dependent on my parents. However, the reality is quite different. There are reasons why I have been living at home until now. Let's go back a bit and start from my childhood. I was 7 years old when my sister was born. She's really a cute child. She's your sister, Bridget. Get along well with her. I'll protect her because I'm the big sister. I vividly remember how my father, Douglas, and my mother, Cheryl, were delighted by the birth of their second child. Back then, he would often tease my sister, Mary, and get scolded by my mother. He probably couldn't help but adore her. I, too, was looking forward to playing with Mary. But I could never come to like Mary. Mom, do you know where my gym bag is? Isn't it hung up? You should prepare it yourself. Normally, I always hang my gym bag on the hook in the living room shelf. Since it wasn't there, I asked my mother. Despite this, my mother seems completely indifferent to me, always responding coldly. Usually I end up finding it in the drawer where it often gets mixed with other clothes when my mother is in a hurry or doesn't notice. Each time I have to thoroughly search through all the drawers in the house. The moment I finally found the bag, unfortunately my mother came to the spot. What are you doing? The drawers are a mess. I'm sorry. You require more care than Mary. Even as an elementary school student, I couldn't accept this situation. But even if I believed in my heart that I was not at fault, the moment I was yelled at loudly by my parents, I unconsciously convinced myself that I was to blame. Such is the psychology of a young child. Since my sister was born, my mother started to get angry with me often. From that time, I gradually became unable to say anything to my mother. Moreover, I started to feel the same fear towards my father. What did you buy? A toy for Mary. I thought Mary would like it. I want a toy too. I'll buy you one next time. But you've been saying that for a while. It's always Mary, that's not fair. What's not fair? I buy it because I want to. If you keep saying, buy it, it makes me not want to buy it. The moment my father's yelling echoed, my sister started crying, and he hurriedly picked her up to stop her crying. My presence, with a face about to cry, was completely ignored. No one cared about me. Mother's scolding was painful, but the overwhelming intimidation in Father's shouting voice was something I found very hard to endure. I was always tense and scared in front of my father. Mother never stood up for me. Hey, Mom. You get scolded for being jealous of Mary and begging for toys, especially because you're the older sister, and don't you understand? Instead, come over here and help me. My mother handed me a soapy sponge to help with the dinner cleanup. Gripping the foamy sponge handed to me by my mother, I washed the dishes one after another, as if it were a part of my routine. Thanks for taking care of the cleanup. My mother left the spot and went to take care of my sister. While I could feel the presence of my parents amusing and taking care of my sister behind me, I had no choice but to silently continue washing the dishes alone. When the second child is born, it's inevitable that the time spent with the first child decreases. As a result, it's common to feel loneliness and solitude. Even though the older child is still young, they are often expected to help with household chores and childcare as part of their role. Of course, parenting is tougher than one might imagine, and particularly when parents lack the time or emotional capacity, it can become difficult to give enough attention and love to the children. However, as time passes and children grow older, these issues often naturally get resolved by themselves. I tried to convince myself that the different treatment I received was because my sister was still young. But the reality was completely different from what I had anticipated. Instead, the situation worsened, and the difference in how my parents treated me and my sister became even more pronounced. "I have a request for you, Dad." "What is it? Tell me." "Can you buy me the clothes listed here?" "How much do they cost? I hope it's not expensive." "Please, I really want this one." "All right, I'll talk to your mom about it." "Yay, I love you, Dad." My sister picked up the magazine, swinging it around like a toy and laughing happily. I only got gifts from my parents on special days like birthdays or Christmas. But it was different for my sister. If she said she wanted something, even if they are trivial items, our parents would immediately buy it for her. Seeing how my sister always managed to get things, I gathered a little courage and tried asking as well. However, the response was surprisingly dismissive, and with a simple "be patient" it was settled, and I lost the energy to persist further. As my sister grew, my parents increasingly did whatever she asked, and the gap in how they treated us grew. Speaking of which, what about the laundry? Wanting to be a good child, I went to hang the laundry without arguing back at my mother. As these days continued, I gradually began to gauge my parents' moods. I constantly felt worried about how they saw me, and I couldn't truly relax even when I was at home. Feeling uncomfortable in the house and wanting to change my living environment at this juncture by going to the university, I decided to discuss it boldly with my parents. "I'm thinking of living on my own once I'm in college. I'll manage the rent and living expenses by working part-time. Is that okay?" "Living alone? You mean moving out?" "What's gotten into you suddenly? Living alone is dangerous." "That's right. Dad would be sad if you were to leave, Bridget. We're worried about you." Though they didn't approve of me living alone, I didn't argue strongly and gave up on the idea. Initially, I felt that my parents were only particularly interested in my sister, but what they said seemed to indicate that my feelings were just a one-sided misunderstanding. My parents seemed to care for me as their daughter, and my father especially seemed saddened by the thought of me leaving. Seeing their reaction, the cloud in my mind cleared, and I felt relieved. Perhaps surprised by my desire to live alone, I noticed a clear change in my parents' attitudes. My mother stopped imposing housework on me, and my father began to show concern for me. I was relieved that I no longer had to worry about my parents' moods, but when university life started, I was greeted by a routine no different from before. "What's for breakfast today?" "I've been up all night and haven't made it yet." "You haven't made it yet? What time do you think it is?" "Don't neglect your chores just because you're going to university. You have to work for your tuition." "Good morning. Sis, is the breakfast ready yet?" "I'll make it quickly, so please wait a bit longer." Rushed as I was, I grabbed the hot toast from the toaster without a second to spare and placed it on a plate. No matter how busy I was, nobody would help me. Until I brought breakfast to the table, they continued to sit on the sofa watching TV without moving much. My chores did not stop at preparing breakfast. I was responsible for many other household tasks. Dinner preparation, cleaning, and laundry. I basically handled all household chores. Previously, I believed that my parents cared about me and that's why they want me to live alone, but I realized that this was a misunderstanding. As my graduation approached, I resolved once again to leave this house. "Dad, Mom, I want you to listen. After I graduate from university, I will live alone." "Do you want to live alone that much? Why don't you stay here until you get married?" "That's right. After all the trouble we went through to send you to university, you want to leave us as soon as you graduate? Don't trample on our feelings. Are you planning to abandon us when we're no longer useful?" I felt that my parents would not allow me to live alone because they would have to do the household chores and cleaning without me. But this time, I was determined not to yield to their opposition and to stick to my own will, no matter what. However, both of my parents cried and begged me not to leave, saying it was cruel to abandon them. Faced with a side of my parents I had never seen before, I found myself moved and once again had to give up on the idea of living alone. This incident was truly a moment that could have changed my destiny. Since I didn't push through with living alone, my life thereafter became much harder. After graduating from university, I secured a job in sales at an insurance company. I work from early morning until late at night, constantly busy with daily tasks. Despite this, the situation where I am almost solely responsible for the household chores has not changed. Furthermore, now that I'm earning an income as a working adult, my parents and sister Mary have started asking me for anything they want. It's almost your first payday. What should we have you buy? What are you talking about? I've got my eye on a store. I want something too, big sis. A family discussion was held to decide what to buy with my first paycheck. However, it felt as if my presence was completely ignored. Watching the three of them talking happily, I felt so detached, as if I wasn't really there. The same thing continued every time I received my paycheck. If it had just been them coming to me with their cute requests, I might have been able to accept it. But after 3 months, they started saying it was bothersome to tell me what they wanted, and simply demanded the money. Even though they are family, I should be able to refuse when they demand money. However, perhaps due to the trauma from my childhood or my desire to be a good child, I found myself unable to say anything to my parents and ended up giving them money reluctantly. Give me some too. Even my sister Mary was someone I couldn't talk back to. In this house, it seems that my parents and sister are ranked above, and I am the only one below. I even found myself unable to refuse money to my sister, who is still in middle school. For the first few months, the amounts they asked for were small, so I thought a little bit wouldn't hurt. However, as the amounts gradually increased, I began to feel doubtful. I've brought this month's share. Thank you for your hard work this month. When I handed over the envelope, my mother received it as casually as if she were taking a remote control. As a new employee, my income was about $2,500. Within a year, I found myself giving most of my salary to my family. I only had about $200 for myself each month. Managing on $200 was more difficult than I expected. I couldn't afford to go out to eat with friends or visit the hair salon. My days were just back and forth between home and work, and I had to stay at home even on weekends. At work, as I didn't groom myself well, baseless rumors started spreading around, suggesting I was either struggling financially or being deceived by a man. Unable to discuss the truth, I had no choice but to ignore the gossip at work. As this situation continued, before I knew it, 5 years had passed, and I had turned 28. It's not that I simply went through these 5 years without saying anything. While I didn't achieve results that drastically changed my situation, I definitely made some small efforts. Can I reduce the money I give to everyone a bit? Is that okay? There's no way that's okay. What are you talking about? My father's angry face was right in front of me. I could feel the intensity as if he was about to attack me. I'm sorry. As my father walked away from me, I realized that I had been unconsciously holding my breath, and I finally exhaled deeply, feeling relieved. Whenever I hesitate to hand over my salary, my parents use various methods to pressure me. 5 years into my job, my monthly salary has reached about $3,000. Among my peers, this amount is quite good, and it's also because I have worked very hard. However, the reason for this effort is not necessarily praiseworthy. Hasn't your salary increased at all? Isn't it supposed to go up based on performance and sales? Aren't you working hard enough? I'm really trying my best. Stop making excuses and work harder. I have been working even harder than before, and as a result, my salary has increased. However, since I have to give all of the increased portion of my salary to my family, I still only have $200 left for myself. The misguided reasons for my efforts have led to several changes around me. My parents retired 2 years ago and switched to part-time jobs. Despite working part-time, they do not seem to be working desperately. Despite my hard work, my parents often spend their days relaxing at home. $3,000 a month is a typical amount for a family of 4 to live on. and my salary is barely enough to support my entire family's lifestyle. My parents, who do not have to worry about living expenses, freely use the money they earn from part-time jobs. I'm home. Oh, welcome back. When I returned home, I saw my parents enjoying sweets in the living room. To the outside world, my parents' lifestyle may not seem much different from other families. However, living on $200 myself, their actions of enjoying sweets seem incredibly luxurious to me. What's that? It's pudding. There's some for you in the fridge too. Sensing my return, my sister came out of her room to have dinner. As I started preparing dinner, my sister took the pudding from the fridge and began eating it. When I opened the fridge to get the ingredients, I found that the pudding I had been looking forward to was gone. My sister happily eats pudding with our parents, but at 21, she is also a part-timer like them. Even after graduating high school, she didn't pursue further studies or find full-time employment, instead continuing to live on my parents' support. However, since my parents themselves rely on my income, in the end, my sister is also depending on my income through my parents. Others might find this situation bizarre and feel conflicted about it. However, having grown up always watching and adjusting to my family's moods, I no longer knew how to escape this situation. I was living each day with a resigned feeling, as if I would spend my entire life for my family. In the midst of this, a turning point in my life suddenly occurred. As part of an effort to make the workplace more comfortable for employees, the company decided to appoint a counselor. However, whenever something is introduced for the first time, everyone tends to be cautious. Therefore, the company decided to select one person from each department to undergo counseling. It was made voluntary, but no one volunteered. No one wants to cut into their work time to attend counseling. Such unwanted tasks always end up being my responsibility. Due to my plain appearance and my inability to resist, no matter how troublesome the role, I am inevitably targeted. I'll do it. While sighing inwardly, I slowly raised my hand to indicate that I would attend the counseling. Afterward, I was set to speak with the counselor in a corner of the office. Is there anything you are struggling with? This is why I ended up seeing the counselor. I don't have the courage to speak about such things. Nothing in particular. I was asked about my current job and relationships, and I planned to answer vaguely and end the conversation. Unexpectedly, when asked about my family, I hesitated a bit. Is there anything troubling you regarding your family? Caught off guard, I stumbled over my words, unable to find the right thing to say. I had expected questions about work, so being asked about my family was unexpected. Since people are generally cautious about private matters, it is usual not to delve too much into such topics. Despite this, I was surprised that the counselor brought up the topic of my family. I had to admit they were truly professional. Perhaps while listening to me, the counselor sensed that the problem lay more with my home environment than with my workplace. Thinking that it was pointless to hide it, I decided to talk about my relationship with my parents and sister, and my current situation. As I spoke, the counselor's expression gradually became more serious. When I finished talking, the counselor took a deep breath and slowly started speaking. This is essentially domestic violence, isn't it? Is this considered DV? From what you've told me, it feels like a financial DV. The relationship with your parents, especially, seems to be problematic. I couldn't help but raise my voice in surprise at the unexpected words from the counselor. There are various types of DV, and commonly, people think of physical violence. However, I learned that there are also forms of DV that affect the mind, like psychological abuse and power harassment, and financial DV, which I am currently experiencing. According to the counselor, there seems to be a particular issue with how and why I ended up giving money to my parents. The intimidation I received from my parents and the situation where I had to watch their moods have deeply rooted themselves, influencing my actions unconsciously. Occasionally, they used apologies to make me feel guilty or treated me kindly to delude me into thinking I was needed, making it difficult for me to separate from my family. This is a typical method of DV, and it seems I am being mentally dominated by my family, making it hard for me to break away. It feels like I'm struggling financially, but sometimes I think it might be an exaggeration. I think you've become unable to see your situation objectively." After that answer, the counselor began writing something on a piece of paper. I felt a bit uneasy at the sound of the pen. What can I do to change this situation? Instead of trying to change the situation immediately, start by valuing your own feelings more than your family's. While listening to the counselor, I was deep in thought. I had never thought about valuing my own feelings before. Even after the counseling session ended, my emotions remained complicated. As I headed home, my heart still felt cloudy. On the train, I saw my reflection in the window. My hair was disheveled, my clothes wrinkled, and my face, poorly made up, looked terrible. Disappointed by my appearance, I felt a desire to take better care of myself. In my current situation, I definitely don't have enough money to maintain a proper appearance. I work, so why should I only have $200 to spend? I began to question. Why do I have to support my family? The sway of the train seemed to help sort out the chaos of my thoughts and feelings. To clear my mind, I decided to muster a little courage. Did you withdraw the money? You got your paycheck, right? When I arrived home, before saying hello, my mother began asking for money. It was clear that for her, receiving such a large amount like $3,000 had become routine, accepted as normal without any special feelings. But I still couldn't completely clear my mind and ended up giving her the money without saying anything. However, thanks to the counseling, I was now more aware of the subtle changes in my mother's expressions and attitudes that I normally wouldn't notice. Isn't your salary going up a little more? You are working seriously, right? Why can you only say things like that? In these 5 years, even when I've given money, you haven't said thank you once. If you're working full-time and living at home, it's only natural for you to contribute money. You should be grateful for being raised up to this point. I understand what you mean, Mom. What's wrong? You're unusually confrontational today. She approached me with an intense look. I stood firm without fleeing from her stern gaze. For the first time, I closely observed my mother's irritated expression. Despite being overwhelmed by her intensity, I couldn't help but notice that her eyebrows were a bit unkempt. I don't know if they heard our conversation, but my father and my sister came out of the room. "What's the matter? What happened?" She's saying weird things. She's complaining that we don't thank her even when she gives us money. Did you really say that? You went to university because we raised you? Don't you think contributing money is a way to repay us? It's your duty as the eldest daughter. Despite their unreasonable words, my mother and sister were nodding and laughing. The old me might not have realized how abnormal this situation was. I am not the same person I used to be. I understand that I need to contribute money since I live at home, but isn't it wrong that I'm supporting all 3 of you who aren't working? We do work, you know. We're not full-time employees like you, but does that mean working part-time jobs isn't the same as working full-time? So you want to use all the money you earn for yourself without repaying your parents? What do you think of us? If you don't want to contribute money, you can't live here. Get out quickly. Well, it's going to be hard for someone who can only work like you to live alone, sis haha. Their arguments felt utterly irrational, and gradually I lost the energy to deal with this absurdity. I understand that part-time jobs are also respectable work, but in reality, all 3 of them barely go to work. I know that my parents and sister aren't living in excessive luxury, but I cannot deny the fact that they are being supported by my money. Because I was supporting all 3 of them with my money, I had no choice but to stay at home even on my days off. Honestly, there's some truth to what my sister says about whether I can live alone or not. In reality, for the past 5 years, my life has been nothing but a cycle between home and work, so I might lack general knowledge and skills related to everyday living. There's a possibility that I don't even know things that would surprise those around me. I don't even know how electricity bills are paid. Lacking basic knowledge, I end up feeling embarrassed in various situations. Thinking this way, the old me would have decided against living alone. But now, every time I hear their words, I feel the anger that was dormant deep within me rising again. I notice that my hands are clenched, and I feel a heat spreading throughout my body. The cloudiness in my mind had already disappeared. Why do I have to support my family? Why do I have to be treated this way? I finally realize that this situation is wrong and start taking actions to escape it. Thank you, I'm leaving home. Saying this, I tried to leave the house as if I was going to work. "What are you talking about? Wait. We were wrong. Forgive us. Don't be stubborn, and let's live together in peace. Don't leave us behind. We'll be lonely." The three of them, panicked by my actions, desperately tried to persuade me to stay. They clung to me, crying, as if they understood me, just like they always do. It was exactly the typical method of DV that the counselor had taught me. It was obvious from an objective viewpoint. I was made painfully aware of how foolish I had been before. "Goodbye. Are you really planning to live on your own?" It might have been completely unexpected for the three of them that I would actually leave home. As a result, they froze, becoming speechless as if they had lost their words. Thinking that this moment might be the last time I see my parents and sister, I imprint their astonished expressions firmly in my memory. Leaving home to live on my own. It was just that simple. By doing this, they might come to regret their previous attitudes towards me. A month later, my dream of living alone finally began. It's natural to feel uneasy at first. However, this unease gradually faded, and I slowly became accustomed to living alone. Then I started to truly enjoy the freedom of a life unbound by family. Yet, just as I was settling into my pleasant solitude, the last few days have been marked by my phone's incessant ringing. After work, when I checked my mobile, there were over 100 missed calls. The callers were only my parents and sister. I considered ignoring them, but I was a bit curious about how the three of them had been managing over the month, so I called my sister. "How many times do you think I called? Big sis, come back home." My sister sounded on the verge of tears, genuinely pleading for help. It was the reaction I had expected. The $3,000 I used to give my parents had been their entire living expenses. Now it was gone. Even if it wasn't $3,000, they needed to earn at least the minimum amount to survive, which my parents and sister weren't used to. It was unlikely that the three of them, who had hardly worked at all before, would suddenly find jobs. Realizing they couldn't make ends meet, it seemed they had considered getting employed. However, my parents had already passed 60 years old and had a significant employment gap, making it difficult for them to find reemployment. Additionally, there were hardly any companies willing to hire my sister, who had no work experience. They had been living a lifestyle where they would spend the entire $3,000 monthly, including any earnings from part-time jobs, so there was hardly any money left in their bank accounts. The three of them had quit their part-time jobs recklessly to focus on job hunting. With no income, they ran out of food and had no choice but to contact me. That's a tough situation. I hope you find employment soon by then. I had no intention of helping them anymore, so I decided to just listen and then end the call. No matter how many times I think about it, I can't find a satisfying explanation for why I had prioritized my family over myself to such an extent. Looking back, my parents' and sister's behaviors were unreasonable, but I had continued to deal with them all along. I was mentally and emotionally unstable, probably unable to recognize my poor judgments. I've come to realize again how psychological control and domination can have a serious impact on one's consciousness and emotions. While my parents and sister seem to be struggling, I am living peacefully. Now that I am free from a life dominated by my parents, I am truly relishing the joy of building my own life with my own hands. I've decided to prioritize my feelings first. For now, I think I'll go shopping for things I like on my day off tomorrow.